Good afternoon, and welcome to a live version of the Liberty is Essential podcast. This is episode 9, and my name is Donald Rainwater. I'm coming to you this afternoon to talk about a subject that I actually did a Facebook Live video this morning from my car. I had to pull over to the side of the road because I was listening to the radio, and some comments that were made during the newscast were frustrating enough to me that I decided that I needed to pull over to the side of the road and point out some things. The video didn't come out very well, so I've deleted that, and I am coming to you live now to talk about what actually occurred yesterday that prompted me to be a little frustrated. And I don't know whether you've heard this on a newscast or read it yet, but yesterday there was a hearing on House Bill 1123, which allows legislative leaders to call a special session, bringing lawmakers back for a maximum of 40 days if Holcomb declares a statewide emergency. It would also prohibit the state from restricting the right to worship in a state of emergency. Now, the members of the Indiana General Assembly, many of them commented over the summer that they had concerns and that they would address those concerns as soon as they had the opportunity. Now, they've had several opportunities to pass House concurrent resolutions introduced by Representative Kurt Nisley to terminate the governor's emergency declaration, but they failed to do so. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. But the reality is this particular House Bill 1123 provides so that in the future, when the governor doesn't call a special session because he's got all the power, the General Assembly can call themselves into session. Now, here's what really frustrates me. The governor has now come out and said that he's concerned that House Bill 1123 isn't constitutional because the state constitution doesn't give the General Assembly the authority to call themselves into special session. Only he can. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you where I'm frustrated. During the gubernatorial debates, Governor Holcomb told us all that he was granted these emergency powers by the infinite wisdom of the General Assembly. I believe his exact words were, the General Assembly in their infinite wisdom. Yet now, when they are choosing to pare back, reduce his emergency powers, he questions whether or not they have the authority to do it. The reality is that he believes they have infinite wisdom when it benefits him, but then he calls into question their judgment and their understanding of the state constitution when it doesn't benefit him. This is the worst kind of double-talking, two-faced political crap. And we as citizens need to call him out on it. I hope the media will call him out on it, but we, the citizens, definitely need to call him out on it. You see, either the General Assembly has the authority to modify the original authorities in the state constitution, or they don't. And if they don't have the authority to do what they're doing now, they didn't have the authority to give him the power in the first place. And that's the truth. The reality is either they can do what they're doing now, or they couldn't have the authority to do what they did before. Because the state constitution says that the General Assembly does not have the authority to give a citizen or group of citizens privileges that are not afforded to all citizens. Therefore, the governor does not have the authority from the General Assembly to tell us what businesses can be open, what businesses have to have curbside service, when churches can have services, and when they can't. You see, he picks and chooses. He's worried about the state constitution when it limits his authority, but not when it gives him authority he shouldn't have. This really, really, really bothers me. And this brings me back to the 4 House concurrent resolutions that have been introduced to terminate the governor's emergency declaration that was originally introduced on March 6th of 2020. He has now renewed it 12 times. We are no longer in a state of emergency. There is no way. We have now vaccinated more Hoosiers than have tested positive for the virus. We are no longer under a state of emergency. The only reason he continues to renew it is he has become drunk on the power of having the ability to make these decisions on his own that directly affect your life. Think about that. And again, we have now vaccinated almost 800,000 Hoosiers, and less than 700,000 have tested positive for the virus. There is no more state of emergency. The only state of emergency is we have a governor who has become drunk and addicted to the power that he should have never been allowed to have in the first place. And now, not only is he speaking out saying that the General Assembly doesn't have the authority to call themselves into session, but he's sending in the heads of state agencies to testify in opposition of House Bill 1123. This is an obvious attempt to circumvent the checks and balances that are supposed to keep our government in check. We are supposed to have a limited government and maximum individual freedom in the United States of America and in the state of Indiana. And what we have is not that. What we have is one man who has seized unlimited authority and who now has decided that he can question the legislature when they seek to limit that authority. This is scary, folks. It's scary because there's no end in sight. States such as Texas, Florida, South Dakota, Mississippi, Iowa are eliminating restrictions. Why? Because there's no longer a public health emergency. When there's a vaccine and there are treatments, there's no longer an emergency. Last year, Governor Holcomb said that they were going to institute 15 days to flatten the curve and slow the spread so that this wouldn't go on for too long. Well, it's past too long. You may have heard last night that President Biden made some glib comment about if we all do what we're supposed to do, we might be out from under this by the 4th of July, our Independence Day. We heard Governor Holcomb make the same baloney, vacuous statement last year. Think about that. Evidently, Governor Holcomb and President Biden think alike. That's a problem. You see, Governor Holcomb says that he's going to keep an eye on data points. Well, I remember back last spring, we were told that there were 4 data points, and that when those 4 data points were met, when those 4 conditions were met, we would no longer need restrictions. Well, we've long since met those data points, but he continues to renew his emergency powers. And if somebody doesn't stop him, he's not gonna stop. That's why we must all get behind House Concurrent Resolution number 18. It is currently in the Rules Committee in the House. That is chaired by State Representative Daniel Leonard. And State Representative Leonard has refused to bring any of the 4 resolutions to terminate the emergency declaration to a hearing in his committee. So we need to call him. And I'm going to pull up real quick here, see if I can pull up his phone number again so that I can give that to you right here, right now. Because this is important, folks. It is our responsibility as citizens to hold our elected officials accountable and make sure that they are doing their job the way that they are supposed to do it. Not the way they want to do it, the way they're supposed to do it. Pardon me for just a second here. The Rules and Legislative Procedures Committee, chaired by Representative Daniel Leonard, whose phone number is 1-800-382-9841. That phone number again, 1-800-382-9841. If you believe that this emergency declaration has gone on too long and that this is out of control, please call Representative Daniel Leonard. Call his office tonight, tomorrow morning. 1-800-382-9841, and tell him that you, a tax-paying citizen of the state of Indiana, want House Concurrent Resolution number 18 to get a hearing, to be voted out of committee so that it can go to the floor of the House of Representatives and get a vote. Folks, this is critical. We, the people of the state of Indiana, run the government. The government reports to us, not the other way around. We tell the government what it is supposed to do, not one man telling 6.7 million people when they can go to work, when they can go to a place of worship, whether or not they have to wear a mask. These things have to stop. Every individual citizen of the state of Indiana has the inalienable right to decide for themselves how to protect their health, their family, their home, their place of worship, their business. And our elected representatives are supposed to represent us and protect and secure our individual rights, not have the back of a governor who has become too enamored with his own authority and power. So I ask you one more time, please, if you agree with me that this has gone on long enough, call Representative Daniel Leonard at 1-800-382-9841 and tell him that you, a tax-paying citizen of the state of Indiana, expect for House Concurrent Resolution 18 to get a hearing and a vote out of his committee. Because we just can't afford for Governor Eric Holcomb to decide when the General Assembly has infinite wisdom and when they don't. It's not his decision to make. It's ours. We are the citizens. It's our government. And it's time we let our elected representatives know who's in charge. And if they won't stand up for our rights, then we know what we have to do in 2022. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this. Again, Representative Daniel Leonard, 1-800-382-9841. House Concurrent Resolution number 18. We need a hearing, we need a vote, and we need to limit the governor's authority before it's too late. Thank you. Have a good evening.